On this edition of the Newsmakers, on the front line of the fight against Daesh, we have a special report from the Libyan city of Sirte. Also on today's program, counting the cost of Israel's blockade on the Gaza Strip. And in Picture This, we take a look at how Muslims around the world are marking Ashura. Hello and welcome to the Newsmakers with me, Andrea Sankey. The Libyan city of Sirte is known for being the hometown of the country's former leader, Muammar Gaddafi, who was deposed and then killed during the Arab Spring in 2011. Now, 2 years ago, Daesh took advantage of a power vacuum in Sirte to seize control of the city and use it as a base to launch attacks on other parts of the country. But since May of this year, Libyan militias have been fighting back. And now they're very close to retaking Sirte, with Daesh now controlling only one neighborhood. DRT World's Nicole Johnston has spoken to the fighters on the front line in Sirte and sent this special report for the Newsmakers.
The militias of Misrata walk with a swagger. They have every reason to feel confident. They've almost defeated Daesh in the coastal city of Sirte.
هذول كلهم كلاب هذول يهود هذول كلهم اعداء الله هذاك دول تعامل معهم بيش عامل نفس الاسلوب ونفس الحساب تعامل معهم ضروري منهم هذول كما تعامل هم تعامل معهم حتى هم احنا ديننا دين الاسلام بس الله اكبر لا اله الا الله محمد رسول الله بس اكثر منها ما عندنا شيء ثاني.
But the battle has come at a huge cost to them.
More than 500 men have been killed, so why does he keep coming out here to fight Daesh?
في أكثر من 500 شهيد، فأنت ليش تعرض في نفسك للخطر؟
لا عادي من أجل ليبيا يموتوا حتى 1000 2000 3 عادي يعيشوا الثانيين صغار الثانيين يكبروا ويعيشوا عادي يموتوا كلهم ما شاء الله. شوف إن شاء الله ربي يحفظ الطريق كلها إن شاء الله ربي ينصرنا ينصر جميع الثوار يا رب.
This is a last push by the fighters against Daesh in Sirte. They've been battling the group since May. They've encountered fierce resistance, snipers, explosive devices. The group is pinned down a few hundred meters behind us in one small part of the city.
Only a few blocks away, a field hospital is dealing with the worst cases from the front. Here, men are dying. Too many of them. Men who fought together, grieved together. The blood is washed away. Doctors and nurses steel themselves for another day. It's been brutal.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر.
Yes, snipers, all snipers and landmines, explosives. They are well trained. They have been in Sirte for 2014, from March 2014 in Sirte. So they are trained very well, and the government don't have this equipment or the good trained snipers, and they held the city for too long. They know it's better than us, so they are better than us in snipers.
Daesh moved into Sirte, taking advantage of a power vacuum in the city that used to be Gaddafi's hometown. In May, the group decided to take more territory. its fighters moved west and attacked a checkpoint 80 kilometres from Libya's third largest city, Misrata. That was too close for Misrata's militias, or military brigades. So they planned an offensive to fight Daesh and retake Sirte. It started in May and is called Banyan Masos, or Operation Solid Structure. Mohammed Darat is one of its top commanders, in charge of the Central Front and 2,000 men.
أنا قلت لك تو الآن العدو أصبح ما عندما يخسر العدو أصبح شرس، العدو بدأ متحصن، بدينا تو حتى المكان اللي نتقدموا له النقص في المكان نتقدموا نلقوا فيه العدو مازال، ولهذا العدو أصبح أكثر شراسة، ولهذا المعركة أكثر صعوبة من ذي قبل. هذا سبب التأخير في عدم الحسم نفس النمط الأول.
Fighters from Misrata have captured most of Sirte now. The outskirts, the port, the convention centre. This is the neighbourhood they are still battling to take. District 1. Around it, apartment buildings are crumbling. Sirte has emptied out. 70,000 residents have fled. Streets have become death traps. Wire is attached to improvised explosives.
بالتأكيد هذه معركة ما خضناهاش قبل، معركة عدو مخادع، عدو عنده أساليب غريبة على ما مش موجودة قبل في الحروب، أساليب التفجير والمفخات والخدع والكذا والقناصين، كلها أساليب مخادعة، ولهذا عدو ذكي وعدو منظم مش سهل.
Under Daesh, a roundabout became a place to hang people. And properties were stamped by the group's tax collectors to seize and to tax, funding its so-called caliphate. But there are some signs of life. Men taking a break, recovering from a shrapnel wound, and complaining about a lack of American support.
بنوجهها للحكومة هذه. الحكومة احنا ما لقيناش منها دعم وجد، دعم الطيران الأمريكي، لكن بالنسبة للأرض لوط ما ريناش أي دعم، كمدرعات كي واحد يقول لك حكومة دعم، ما فيش دعم. الدعم اللي يحكوا عليه هذا ما هناكش منه دعم بس. لو نضرب الدول الثانية في كالعراق ونصر الدعم اللي لها وجيل لليبيا ما هناكش. كالمدرعات والدروع والأسلحة هذه الأسلحة قاعدة الأول اللي احنا نستعملوا فيها، ما عندنا شيء جديد بك. كلنا نصينوا فيها ونجيبوا فيها الأسلحة اللي بتاع 2011.
On the front line, there are long hours to fill, looking for the position of Daesh snipers. They've proved deadly, killing many Libyan forces, along with a Dutch journalist.
ممكن 200 متر 150 متر مرات يجوا للبنية هذه يما يسالوا اللي يجوا للبنية هذه مرات احنا نمشوا لهم البنية هذه البنية هذه اللي بيننا وبينهم هذه وهذه هذين الزوزن اللي بيناتنا احنا تو.
A few floors above, they're preparing to fire at the enemy. The battle ebbs and flows. And after a day on the front line, tanks, this one with a damaged barrel, return to base. No ground has been captured. Still, there are ice creams for the soldiers. And back at base, in a petrol station, men stretch out, eat lunch, and for a moment, relax. In between the petrol pumps, we meet a man, just freed from a Daesh prison and reunited with his son. The group accused him of spying.
طب الحياة تحت داعش تمشي هم على ما كيف ما يقولوا هم تمشي عليه عرفات تطبق. أول شيء نقاط تفتيش يلقى عندك الكتيب السيارة يقول لك هذا كتيب نظام أنت الذي تعامل به كفر وطواغيت وجوا السفر يقول لك هذا ممنوع. مسلمين نفتحوا فتوحات تونس ومصر وبلدان العرب يعني عربية يقول لك نفتحها كلها وهم يعتقدون أن بيفتحوا روما.
Sirte is full of buildings which Daesh turned into prisons. An old army barracks held dozens of condemned men. A children's daycare centre also became a prison. A Daesh flag on the wall. Another room full of female mannequins. They were banned under Daesh, deemed too indecent. And in case any prisoners, including foreigners, didn't know how they were supposed to pray, Daesh prepared this in English.
The prisons weren't only used as a place to punish and torture people. Daesh also used them to collect information about the people it controlled, and it was organised. You can see here that the group had envelopes printed with its logo, both small and large envelopes, as well as forms that it used to maintain its administrative control on the city.
And many of the people who spent time here are still deeply affected by it. We're shown around by a man who spent 4 months being shuttled between different jails. Sometimes Daesh carried out mock executions on him. Now he fears that when the group is defeated, people will accuse each other of collaboration.
والله احنا تمنينا هيك يعني وني يعني شبحنا الناس يعني شفنا الناس أنا كلها ناوية على المصالحة يعني كلها تعبت من الفوضى اللي فيها ليبيا يعني إذا ما اتجهوش كلهم للمصالحة ليبيا حتبدأ كلها في الدم دائما.
Sirte is the first great battle for Libya's new UN-backed government in Tripoli. It's pulled together all the Misrata militias and others from Tripoli and Sirte into a national force. Young men, untrained and poorly equipped. Their army is far from ideal, but this is the only one Libya's got. Nicole, Johnston, The Newsmakers.
Still to come on The Newsmakers, we look at the impact of Israel's continuing blockade on Gaza. And in Picture This, we look at how Muslims are observing Ashura. On October 5th, the Israeli Navy intercepted a boat attempting to reach the Gaza Strip. The so-called Women's Boat to Gaza was the latest attempt by activists to break Israel's blockade on the Palestinian territory, and the latest example of Israel stepping in to prevent that from happening. But even if the outcome of the Women's Boat initiative was predictable, the action at least helped draw attention to Gaza and how the blockade affects the daily lives of around 2 million people. Natalie Poihonen has more.
These women are the latest activists to try to break the Gaza blockade. The Israeli Navy intercepted their boat in international waters and made it dock in Israeli territory. Gaza's shoreline remains firmly off limits to the outside world. The Israeli and Egyptian blockade restricts the movement of people and goods in and out of Gaza by land, sea and air. Since 2007, it has defined life for the 1.8 million people of the Gaza Strip, and the economic costs are crippling. The World Bank estimates the blockade has cut Gaza's GDP by at least half, and it says exports have virtually disappeared. Before the blockade, more than 9,000 truckloads of goods were exported out of Gaza in 2005. Last year, about 1,350 made it out. More than 80% of Gazans now rely on some form of humanitarian assistance, including those who can get work. The unemployment rate is 41.7%. And for young Gazans aged between 20 and 24 years old, the job prospects are even worse. 61.9% are out of work. That's one of the highest youth unemployment rates in the world. The United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says the blockade amounts to collective punishment.
The closure of Gaza suffocates its people,
الحصار غزة يخنق الناس هنا
stifles its economy,
ويدمر اقتصادها
and impedes reconstruction efforts.
ويعيق عمليات إعادة الإعمار.
And that's a price the people of Gaza will continue to pay as long as this economic siege continues. Natalie Pohanen, The Newsmakers.
Joining me now from Gaza is Omar Shaban. He is the founder of PalThink for Strategic Studies, an organization that describes itself as a think and do tank for Palestinian issues. Omar, thanks so much for joining us. We just saw how the Gazan economy is actually crumbling under the blockade right now. So can you tell us what's actually working in Gaza right now? What's left in the economy that can actually be built upon going forward?
This is a very good question, and going directly to the topic, the only thing is working in Gaza, which is very slow, is the reconstruction of the Gaza after the 2014 war. Up to now, around 25% of the destroyed houses were built. Still, there is a huge shortage of raw material. The export from Gaza is very few and very little. Gaza is still under blockade. The movement of people and the goods into Gaza and out of Gaza are still very limited. Gaza has been turned to a humanitarian economy, so we cannot call there is an economy in Gaza. There is a group of people who become 2 million people just yesterday. There is 2 million people in this small piece of land living. 2/3 of them are very poor. 2/3 of them are depending entirely on the international aid. There is no economy. There is some agriculture sector, there are some tourists, but in general, the whole society become depending on international support.
And if the only economic stimulus right now really is via these pledged donations, I still have to ask, what's the utility of these donor conferences if Hamas actually does stay in power and those donations can't actually be realized on the ground?
Hamas is not in power as it was. In 2014, 2nd of June 2014, a coalition government was formed, where are some ministers who are based in Gaza become member in the Palestinian cabinet, which is managed by Dr. Ramal Hamdallah, who visited Gaza twice in the past 2 years. Just 2 times he has been to Gaza for 36 hours each visit. So there is a government, but this government is not operating effectively. Hamas is the de facto authority when it comes to the security, when it comes to the public servant in Gaza, but Gaza become part of, or has been restored to the Palestinian Authority. So we are in the middle. We are not fully divorced, but we are not fully married. And this is the problem that make difficult for the donors and the international community to operate, because the coalition government is not operating here, and they cannot work with Hamas due to the no contact policy. And the coalition government have said different reasons why they did not operate in Gaza. They said that Hamas did not allow them to operate in Gaza. International community said we cannot work in Gaza unless the coalition government is in place in Gaza. So the Gazan people found themselves in the middle of a battle that they don't have a stake on it.
Right, and while you say the Gazan people do not remain fully divorced from Hamas, do you see a light at the end of the tunnel as far as getting aid through and reconstruction to fully begin?
Just to make it very simple, Gaza has been under the siege of the Israeli siege. Now, we have Israel who put some sort of blockade in Gaza. We have Hamas who has been ruling Gaza from 2007, and they give political power in June 2014. We have the coalition government who was formed on 2nd of June but is not operating. And we have Egypt who closed Rafah border. Most of the time, they open it once every couple of weeks. And they want the Palestinian Authority to be present in Rafah crossing so the Egyptian can open the crossing. So what I want to say, the people in Gaza, the 2 million people, 62% of the Gaza population are youth who need to travel out, who need medical treatment, who need to go out, found themselves in the middle of different policies of the five stakeholders who are deciding the Gaza future, or the Gaza present and the Gaza future. Of course, the situation is very difficult in terms of social, economic, and educational crisis. There is a light of the tunnel. The light of the tunnel is that the coalition government of the Palestinian Authority should act in Gaza. We want democracy. We want new leadership election where Hamas could be part of the political system. So we have as a Palestinian, we have to do something ourselves. I don't like to blame the international community or Israel for everything. Of course, they are responsible, but still the Palestinians need to do a lot of things to clean their homes. And we have to go, the roadmap for the Palestinians is to go for reconciliation between Hamas and Fatah, election to bring up-to-date parliament, because the parliament and the presidency have expired in 2009. The last election was in 2005, 2006 for the presidency and for the parliament. Both of them have expired. So we need to restore democracy and we need to restore stability in Gaza. Then the international community and Israel have no reason to continue with their policy.
Now, you admit that Gazans are dependent on international aid, but given where the world is now in 2016, the refugee crisis, wars in Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Afghanistan, where do you think Gaza now falls as far as international donations on the priority list?
This is a very good question as well. And unfortunately, yes, Gaza become declined or marginalized by the international community because the donation of the international community has been diverted to the other countries. We are following the destructive war in Syria and many other Arab countries, and the flow of refugees to the Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, and of course the international community and the Arab donors, especially from the Gulf, they need to give support to other crises. Now Gaza, this is one of the reasons why the donors could not fulfill their commitment in Cairo. Unfortunately, we feel that Gaza receive less donation than before. This is why we count a lot on our leadership, because also as long as we are divided, the donors will be reluctant to invest money in Gaza because they're fed up with this. The Palestinian Authority have received more than $26 billion in the past 20 years, and Gaza has received billions of dollars for the reconstruction. Gaza has been under 3 wars in 6 years, and the donors, as we tackle this issue in different articles, the donors have seen some of their assets, the project were destroyed 3 times. Right. So there is a circle of destruction, rebuild, destruction, rebuild. So we have to find a fundamental solution. The fundamental solution is to have a Palestinian leader reconciliation, going to election, then we have a leadership, then we have stability. Okay. But otherwise we find ourselves in this rotating cycle. Thank you.
Quickly, given the rapprochement between Turkey and Israel of a few months back, do you think Turkey now has any special leverage that could perhaps help break the blockade of Gaza?
This is also a very good question. I am one of those who said Turkey has to normalize its relationship with Israel, but politically speaking, without emotional, if Turkey want to influence Israel, they have to have a good relationship with Israel. So yes, some Palestinians were disappointed, but more strategically, the normalization between Turkey and Israel give Turkey a leverage where they can intervene, they can help, they can provide more assistance. But what I want to see, and I said this to some Turkish politicians here in Palestine and outside in Istanbul itself, we look for Turkey to not only to do some humanitarian project. We need electricity, we need education, we need a seaport, we need a crossing. Turkey can play a a very fundamental role at the political level, at the supporting of the civil society and democratization of the Palestinian. Of course, they need to coordinate this with the Palestinian Authority. They should not be seen as they are taking a side of one against the other. I know Turkey has a balanced policy with the Palestinian Authority, President Mahmoud Abbas, and with Hamas, but Turkey need to enhance this image. Yes, Turkey has a lot of leverage to play, apart from giving some humanitarian assistance.
Okay, Omar Shaban, we're going to have to leave it there. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us from Gaza. In today's Picture This, Muslims around the world are marking Ashura. Let's take a look. You've been watching this edition of the Newsmakers with me, Andrea Sankey. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.